Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the new album from 2814, Rain Temple. 2814 is the collaboration project between Hong Kong Express and Telepath of Dream Catalog fame. You may recall that I included their debut album Birth of a New Day as an honorable mention in my Best Albums of 2015 list. I'd suggest going over there and watching that video if you haven't already, but for those of you who don't feel like going over to that video, allow me to recap my thoughts on it. Now, as you may guess, this band's work falls under the genre commonly known as Vaporwave, which, as you may recall, I do not have a ton of experience in. I've heard, I believe, 12 albums in this genre so far, and to be honest, I've really only heard one new Vaporwave album since I made that Best Albums list, being the album from my friend DJ Dooms. But as I said in that list, Birth of a New Day particularly stood out to me among the Vaporwave releases I heard, first of all because it was over an hour long, and most other releases I heard within the genre were rather short, and more importantly because it was 100% original. Vaporwave, being a genre mostly based around stealing other people's work, slowing it down, repurposing it, whatever, is one that's not well documented for having artistic integrity. But here we had a Vaporwave album that most certainly did have it, and quite a lot of it on top of that. Now, even if it weren't for this fact, well, I'm not sure it would have been my favorite Vaporwave album so far. It still would have been up there somewhere, still being based around the ideals of Vaporwave, and with an atmosphere that felt like it came from some kind of Blade Runner city in someone's dreams, and with well fleshed out song lengths and nice melodies to go along with it. Of course, I did get taken aback a bit when I heard that there was a brand new sequel to this well-loved album. What would that even be like? Hopefully it's not more of the same, I thought. As much as I like the atmosphere of that album, I'd be lying if I said I felt like I was particularly hungering for more of it. Birth of a New Day, I think, did a good job of exploring whatever world it had created, but any more of it would have been too much, to be honest. This is mainly because the 8 songs on that album sounded awfully similar, and were awfully repetitive on top of that. Had the melodies and atmosphere not been as well executed as they were, this album would have been an absolute slug to get through, an overstuffed, pretentious empty hole. I mean, obviously it did work, which makes the album all the more impressive, but still, any more of it would have been overdoing it. But I heard this album was going to be different, so I plopped it on my phone and wondered what would come of it. So, how did it turn out? Well, believe it or not, Rain Temple, I think, is actually a pretty big step up from Birth of a New Day in some ways. My main issue with that album was that the songs sounded a little too similar, but they definitely fixed that here. The only song on this album that sounds like it came out of Birth of a New Day was the song This Body, which showcases pretty much the exact same atmosphere and sounds from that album. But it's in the middle of a lot of songs that don't actually sound much of anything like it, so I'm perfectly okay with it. Actually, the rest of the album really isn't Vaporwave at all. The album just has this feeling of huge epicness to it, made from mostly grandiose ambient pads and other electronic textures. At first this kind of reminded me of artists like Tim Hecker on his recent Love Streams album, but actually I think a closer match to this album's overall sound is that of artists from Ultimate Records, especially artists like Solar Fields and Asura. The tracks Eyes of the Temple and Inside the Sphere in particular remind me of the typical Ultimate sound. They're huge, epic, and rhythmic techno soundscapes. Eyes of the Temple involving these dubstep-influenced bass lines and reminding me of what Asura did on his Radio Universe and Life Squared albums, with songs like Lonely Star and La Chanson de Carla. And Inside the Sphere being another more rhythmic track with these huge synth pads reminding me of Solar Fields, particularly his Movements album, and songs like Sky Trees and Soul. I did not at all expect these artists to be invoked, and I'd say it was a pleasant surprise indeed. While the other songs don't really have the techno edges that those tracks did, they're no less fascinating or epic. The intro Before the Rain, as well as Guided by Love and Contact, are all slow-moving ambient pieces that use their synth washes to a grand and almost orchestral effect. Guided by Love, I think, pulls it off the best of these three. Lost in a Dream is also a particularly interesting track, with all these weird and dark synth washes all over the place, paired up with these ethereal vocals from MXXA. Transference is cool too, kind of bringing back that techno edge, but with a much more mysterious bend to it, with ascending synth patterns and weird electronic effects sprinkled around. While not quite as epic as the other songs on here, it's no less engaging. So, overall, I think Rain Temple, while maybe not the most original album in the world, was certainly fascinating and well executed. Combining the sounds I typically associate with Ultimate Records with the sounds of Dream Catalog, and creating a very relaxing but stimulating experience. While I will have to admit I'd be much more likely to return to the Ultimate catalog than this, I think they are much better at that kind of progressive electronic and ambient hybrid, or maybe I'm just more used to that crowd and their style, so this might not have blown me away in the same way as Vaporwave fans seem to have reacted, but I think 2814 executed this album very well, and I can see myself returning to it regardless. The songs were very memorable, there's a lot of very cool stuff on here, and I enjoyed it from front to back. I'm overall feeling a 7.7 out of 10. Favorite tracks: Eyes of the Temple, Lost in a Dream, Guided by Love, Transference, and Inside the Sphere. Least favorite track, This Body. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I would like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.